It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. We made it to Friday. Yeah. Oh boy, did I have trouble getting that Zelda video up this week. YouTube has this periodic thing where the download will get stuck and then just not upload. And it did that to me on uh Tuesday night when I was uploading the Zelda video, and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to sleep. I'm going to get it up in the morning and upload it again. So it finally got back up again. Yay. But I'm really glad you guys liked it. A lot of this Feedback Friday is going to be about that, but we have some Manly Monday feedback as well, and I'm excited. I haven't even looked at the two women talking stuff because that's in Song's capable hands most of the time. New topic next time. Yay. Again, if you want to sponsor a topic for two women talking, please reach out. And if you want, I don't remember the actual information for this part, so I'm going to skip that. I'm going to do the help support this channel. It is Friday. It has been a good week, but I'm tired. Uh, Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for somebody who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. We made our goal this week. Yay. Or GoFundMe for the men's group. You can donate there. Some people are having trouble with the GoFundMe. Most of the time, if they try again later, it works again, but out of my hands. But yeah, we did make our goal for coffee this week. Thank you so much for that. It's always good when we make that goal. Yeah, the patrons are getting a lot of information on the upcoming Discord server that is happening. This week I went through what we're doing in terms of organizing things, how we're trying to find a way that we think works best for everybody. So if you want that, if you want to have feedback on this stuff, if you want to be involved, become a patron. Manly Monday first. One person made an interesting comment, and this was gamifying like pillars of DBT therapy, distress tolerance and resilience. One person said, the only thing I can contribute is about the word disorder. Obviously, I agree that focusing on the negative is a setback. It wasn't until my adult life that I learned what my strengths actually are. I often wonder how many people are in a similar situation. People who can possibly change the world for the better, yet can't because they focus too much on what is a weakness. Or worse, something is perceived as a weakness when it isn't. As to disorder, I tend to think of it more as an inhibitor than a disorder. Yeah, it's restricting, but it doesn't mean I can't. Maybe inhibitor isn't the right word. Still, better to view myself as living on hard mode than to not live a life. And I absolutely agree. To me, the difference, I talk about right now, I have PTS, post-traumatic stress. I am not disordered. I do not have any of the symptoms of the pillars of PTSD. And that is because I do the work to stay out of the D. If I get sloppy, if I let people push me around, then the D comes back. And I know that. And that's why I get so hard ass about things. I agree. There are certain times I wish I could be. It's less and less. I kind of like the hard edges surrounding an even harder center. And that doesn't mean don't have feelings, and that doesn't mean I can't be like kind to people and nice to people. I just if you're looking for somebody who's gonna pat your head and tell you it's okay all the time, I'm just not that. And I don't know why anybody would want someone to be that. There's better and worse ways of telling somebody something, but if somebody never tells you when they don't agree with you, they're disagreeing with you and not telling you. People don't agree 100% on things, right? It's all about picking your battles and making it clear what the issue is. So, yeah, I think inhibitor, if you've got something like anxiety or depression or something like avoidant personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, bipolar, yes, those can be inhibitors. Sometimes they can up the difficulty on something, but you're absolutely right, it doesn't mean you can't do it. And one of the things I want to do with the community, sorry, I gave it a really stupid name on the Discord server because I like stupid names. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet though. um but one of the things I want to do with the Discord server is, yes, there's going to be a very heavy mental health component, but I want to show that people with neurodiversities and mental health challenges can accomplish a lot, and we can help each other accomplish what we want to do both individually and collectively. And that is my big goal for that, is showing everybody you do have strengths, you can help, um you can make things happen. And I think those tangible builds, I mean, this is what I keep hearing about video games, is that it's a sense of accomplishment. Well, let's take that and put it in the larger world. If that's what people love, and I'm one of those crazy people. I say this is good crazy, some people say it's bad crazy, who like, you know, FromSoft games. I am so tempted by Armor Core 6. I so am. I just know that if I get into it, I will get sucked in, and I need to lecture at a university at the end of the month, and they've specifically requested content on Baldur's Gate 3. So I'm going to have to burn through that motherfucker as far as I can. And I want to start over again now that they've patched the thirst to back to levels that were the developer's intent. I want to give the game a fair shake and not judge it based on thresholds that were way too low. So I'm coming for y'all again, Gail. Here we go. But yeah, another comment. Thanks for your comment. I agree. Another comment. Somebody asked to unpack the I'm healing. Here's some messed up shit I went through that the brain does. Somebody said that would be really super useful to hear about. Most important, all about the whys. So, our brain is designed not to help us to do great things. Our brain is designed to keep us alive. So our brains do lots of weird and wonderful things, like dissociation, in order to keep us relatively functional day to day. If that becomes inadequate, then the brain goes into shutdown mode, like a power saving mode. And that's when people can't get out of bed in the morning or the afternoon or the evening, right? The brain is designed to keep us in the cave where it is safe, not venture out to hunt tigers, to use like back in the day Far Cry Primal type things. So what happens is when you undergo something really traumatic that you can't handle at the moment, the brain like puts it into like storage mode. It like caches it, right? Saves it for later when you're more stable and can handle it. And that's why, just as things are starting to get better, just when you start feeling stronger, the brain goes, hey, remember this shit from back in the day? Time to deal with it, because now you can't. And it's really inconvenient because you'd like a little more time before, or a lot more time before you had to eat more shit. But the our bodies and brains don't like carrying trauma. They want to process trauma. They want to process pain because it does bad things if it's just rattling around in there. So the first opportunity it gets, it goes, moink, there you go, deal. That's the short version. And when people say it just takes time, I have one awesome client who hates phrases like just move on. It just takes time because he's like, what does it mean? And he's right. It's meaningless. What time does for a lot of people is the further away from an event we are, the less relevant most brains treat it as. The traumatized brain, not so much. And neurodivergent brains do not have the same sense of time, sense of the passage of time, sense of recognition of time. I can feel like I blink and 8 minutes will pass sometimes. Um, it's why your sleep gets thrown off. It's why, you can hyper focus on things sometimes, but at other times it's like, I'm going to go to another place. And when you've got that going on, that just general fade doesn't happen. Because that general fade is sort of a passive processing thing. Some people just, well, okay, aren't that deep or aren't that smart. And they can just go, it's easier for less intelligent people to quote unquote just move on. Very intelligent people, especially very intelligent neurodivergent people, the process of processing it has to be active and it has to be conscious. And when that stuff kicks in, it's like, hey, remember me? And you're like, fuck. There are things you can do to make it easier. The thing I say is, okay, I'm feeling this. I don't have to do anything about it right now. The other thing I'm taking active steps to be better at now is pacing myself better. Remember last week I just gave the Zelda video an extra week. Twilight Princess may need multiple weeks too. Oh my god, that game's plot is complex. But that was because, I'm not going to knock this shit out of myself. I need the not just do I need that I need the rest. I had to deal with some stressful people stuff. And I don't know about anybody else. I can do a lot of different things, but I can't switch gears. I have to focus a block of time because it's like I need to reroute the patch cables in my brain. So if I'm dealing with a lot of interpersonal stuff, it's like if I am dealing with people's outside voices, I need a bit to shift into like inner world to do writing or reviewing anybody's, like reviewing writing is the one thing that I don't want to rush and I don't want to be too critical. So if I'm in a shit mood, I'm not going to read somebody's manuscript they sent me for a beta read, right? Like I'm just not, that's not fair to them because I'm going to be rah, this is junk, right. So don't do that when you're triggered. And that processing time, actually giving yourself time to feel your feelings instead of being so overscheduled the way some people do to just constantly avoid. And those are the people that just get increasingly avoidant. I can't do that. Nobody, it's not healthy for anybody to be in a constant state of avoidance. So giving yourself some time so that it's pace, but also, knowing, and this is why I make these videos, knowing why your brain just suddenly decided to trauma dump can help it seem less overwhelming and like you're going bad crazy. You're not. You're actually healing. And that's why it's coming up, because now you can handle it. And you're like, why? I know. But that is how it works. Um and if it does become overwhelming, yeah, get up and do something. Um I've actually started being able to read fiction again in lengthy chunks. There's a couple people I know who happen to be really great authors, and like I said, beta reading stories. And because they're so good, I'm like excited to get back to it. Um, but that naming what's going on, give it a name that only you and your important people understand. Um, I use the code Inner Kratos for those like boundaries, like just bonk. Yep, you hit the axe, man. You hit the axe edge. Like, yep. Um, because the alternative is just, I think it's worse. Other people may think it's more approachable, but I'm not the person I want to be when I don't put those boundaries in place. And so I know it's a choice. I know nobody's making me be a hard ass. I prefer to be a hard ass to be a fucking lunatic. So I want to be good crazy, you know? Um, and the the truth is that they keep saying the only way out is through with trauma. And I mean, that's true of any mental health condition, right? What makes these things so hard is when you start trying to get through it, you do get sometimes more withdrawn, sometimes more irritable, uh, more quick to anger, more frustrated. And so then you get negative responses from the people around you, and you go back into shutdown because you don't want to upset them. And so it's really important that everybody in the space knows what these things mean, knows it's not them. It's very, very important when you know you're processing trauma to not allow your brain to seek out, well, you did this and that's why I'm angry. No, that's projection. It's old shit. I've told a lot of people this week, your feelings are valid no matter what. But is it a feeling about what's happening now or a feeling about what's happening back in the day? Either way, it's still valid. Is just make sure it goes at the right place. And the problem with a lot of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and trauma is that CBT is all about, is this emotion helping me? Is this emotion useful? Is this emotion appropriate? And with trauma, part of the reason you're fucking traumatized is because you weren't allowed to feel whatever you were going to feel at the time. That's a big part of it. And you've self gaslit, and other people have gaslit you. Just get over it. It's no big deal. You know, your feelings are real and they're valid no matter what. What you do with them is within your control. And trust me, it's a heck of a lot easier to control and properly direct your responses if you're validating those feelings. So hopefully that'll help, because I want to get onto Zelda feedback. Because it's interesting because a few people, uh, and this may be because of brevity. This may be because the whole Ocarina of Time loop is so confusing. But people said, and they were positive at the video. So this is not a criticism. It's a conversation. I like that. It's not a criticism. It's a conversation. But are you saying Ocarina of Time has a bad ending, or the fallen hero timeline? It's one of those things where time loops get weird. Because you get a situation where one person's future is another person's either past or not in their experience. So the fallen hero timeline is actually the timeline that Link leaves behind when he falls asleep for 7 years. So he's just gone, right? That's they use that. That's when Ganondorf chases Zelda out of the palace, and the waking up 7 years later and stopping him there doesn't happen. That continues. Then there's the timeline where Link wakes up and goes forward that continues after Zelda sends him back to his own time. So Link falls asleep as a child, wakes up as an adult, and then time continues. Obviously, the hero of time is missing from that timeline. He just disappears as far as anybody's concerned. Where'd he go? We don't know. Zelda likes to keep her secrets. And then there's the child timeline where Link had the adventures in Ocarina of Time, loops back in, and then lives out his life as he was intended to, meaning Ganon was stopped. Ganon never took over Hyrule. That's the difference. So it's it's hard to explain. And the point I was making is, if we don't apply, because some people said it's not sexist. It's like, people get really jumpy when it's pointed out that treating one thing as a very different thing than another thing, if it's based on only gender, that is sexist. Or if it's based somewhat on gender, that's sexist. It is. It's not intentional. And you think about that as a timeline as well, right? Because everything I'm challenging about Zelda being a damsel in distress is going against accepted feminist theory in the gaming space. Around 2012, I think it was around there. Well, that's when it was funded anyway. First tropes versus women video. Anita Sarkeesian's like, Peach is a damsel in distress, Zelda's a damsel in distress, and everybody, except me and a few people, went, uh-huh. And they just took that as gospel. And that's one timeline. I'm trying to create a timeline where that shit stops. So the problem with a lot of feminist analysis is it ignores the fact that our emotional responses to things are not neutral. One person just describes it as like the rider making the decisions or the elephant making the decisions. The elephant is your emotions, the rider is your cognition. And your logic is this little teeny rider on top of the great big elephant. And, if, the elephant has been trained and is in a good mood, the rider can steer the elephant. But the elephant's way bigger. And so if the elephant wants to go, I'm going to charge, the cognition is not going to be able to stop that. And so this damsel in distress bad, because there was this guilt among developers of, yes, being very lazy and not being able to think of another fucking plot after Mario. But also, there's this weird guilt that some guys have about wanting to be a hero. And the thing is, I kind of want to be a hero. So I know I ain't gonna be. That wasn't the character role I got. But I understand that impulse. It was hard for me to accept that's not my role. If I try to be the hero, I just end up as a villain because I'm not normal enough. So I have to find another role. But I get wanting to be a hero, it's not a bad thing as long as you're a hero like Link, who is doing it out of duty or service or, a sense of wanting to just make things better, not necessarily for personal gain. And we're going to get into that more in future Zelda videos. The people who are, so what, what does it matter if she's a damsel in distress? Please hang on. There's a lot more to unpack. Part of the reason I've split this into multiple parts is there's so much theory that has been processed kind of weird. The problem with interdisciplinary studies, and women's studies factors into that, is that it cherry picks from different things, so it's never a pure analytical approach. And I discovered this in university when I was taking the same book in English Lit, Humanities, and then Gender Studies at the same time. And the analysis of the book was completely different based on frameworks. And I'm like, this is really cool. But how do we determine which approach is right? And it was a game dev by the name of Vander Caballero. He's a former EA guy. He started a company called Minority Media. I don't know if those guys are even still around. I hope they are. Nice guys. But Vander said, when I, asked him about certain critical analysis of things, and he was, people can think what they want. I'm an artist. I come at stories and games from the realm of art. The critics are going to come at things from the realm of critic. And I took that to heart because I've had to do both. And has being on the artist end softened depersonalized my criticisms? Yeah. I started off being, how could they do this? This is clearly blah, blah, blah. And I was stupid when I wrote that stuff. I was copycatting. I was acting out of my own disappointment in a game, not thinking. Whereas having done it and being judged and talking to more devs, I agree. There's not enough dialogue about how games are made and how the decisions are made and what all the different balances that go into it and the pressures and, the money people saying no, all that stuff. There's not enough dialogue about that. So I try to do it and then people don't listen to me. And it's like, I am telling you things I have been told from sources I can't reveal. Please just take my word for it here, because if I say who it is, I won't be able to talk about it anymore. I mentioned Vander because that's a fairly safe thing, right? It's not disclosing stuff covered by NDA. He said that when I was interviewing him for a piece. I don't remember which article that was. Might have been the National Post article. But when I make a criticism, and I've noticed this with some of the things I've said about Baldur's Gate, people are taking my comments on that game very personally, and they're not intended to be. They're intended to just be, look, let's not lose our heads just because we got one of those old-fashioned experiences that we all like. Let's see other perspectives, because I find that game and the choices that people are making in it very revealing. And I've personally been spending a lot of time going, I can't find anything seriously red flaggy about Karlach. Where are my blind spots? And somebody finally pointed out to me, well, she's basically like a demon. People are automatically going to distrust her and shun her. It's like, yes, that was my blind spot, because people have to learn not to hate me too. It's a gift. But like, that's the thing. Every single one of those characters is toxic in their own way. And if you see that, and you see I hope that's the point. That's okay. If you don't, I'm worried because I have found more and more people don't like people know it's not real, but it's wish fulfillment. And the story may not be real, but the wish it's fulfilling is. And this is where I'm like, why is it this fantasy or ideal that everybody's throwing themselves at you? They barely know you. It was a bug. So, but people were like, yeah, this is a really horny game. This is a really thirsty game. Is that good? Why do we want this? Because when it's just based on you're hot, let's fuck, after a while, it leads to sort of empty physical gratification and no higher connection or fulfillment. And I personally think it's because it's much safer to say, I want to fuck. Oh, check out that ass, all that stuff. It's way safer to say that than I feel drawn to this person. I feel emotionally connected to them. And I don't know why it's safer. It just is in our society. It's not the same in Japanese games. Like, yeah, there's a lot of sex in Japanese games, but like even something like Senran Kagura, there's this idea of friendship and togetherness, and you know, the Yakuza series is my friggin' safe space, guys. I go into those games, and it's like I feel good. This is a world that, like, Kiryu and even Majima have an honor code that's very old fashioned and it's noble in its own way. Like, there's a scene at the beginning of Yakuza 3 where Kiryu basically has to persuade Majima to go back in and, like, make sure the clan doesn't completely fuck it up. And Majima doesn't want to do it. And Kiryu's like, no, you don't have to babysit. You have to, like, break shit. And that purity, that freedom that Majima carries, is like, all right, I think he knew Kiryu was kind of halfway full of shit. But the thing that's amazing about Kiryu is he's not very smart, but he's wise in this. And I'm just like, oh, this game feels so good. That's my wish fulfillment. Like, people who, there's a thing at the beginning of Yakuza 3 where he's talking to the kids in the orphanage that he's running. Single guy running an orphanage. And it sounds very much like some of the things he says to the hostess girls. And someone on Twitch was like, I didn't put that together. And I'm like, yeah, because they're much younger than him. The relationship's very similar. And they're like, we're like, that's so wholesome. The fact that those games managed to have pretty lady, like, hostess mini game, but the point is to figure out their likes and dislikes, help them solve their problems, and support them finding their hopes and dreams and goals. Wholesome. That's my wish fulfillment. And if I can get that with fucking cool dragons and demons and furry people and shit like that, let's do it. The toxic relationship simulator is not my thing. And if it is your idea of fun, go ahead. Enjoy it. There are parts of Baldur's Gate 3 I really, really enjoy. But there are things that it's not good or bad. It's just, let's please talk about this so we can all assess whether this is pointing to something, a social expectation, or, some trauma that isn't helping this person, that is actually getting notably guys into situations where they are being taken advantage of. Because TLDR, women like Shadowheart in real life are bad news. She's not real. I get it. Go ahead and like her if you want. But in real life, women who are, I lie, cheat, deceive, work under the cover of darkness, and do things to forget, but they made me. Run away. Run away screaming. Like, do not walk, run away. Bad, bad news. And yet, we put women like that up on pedestals in media all the time. And it happens so often because that's the way to do the I can be a hero thing now. She's still a fucking damsel in distress. She just talks a lot more. She's not just, but there is that she's stuck. She can't help it. I need to save her. The minute that's the motivation, it's a selfish motivation, and that's the issue with it. Because with Shadowheart, well, you're saving her because you want to get with her. With Zelda, that's not Link's motivation. It's gotta save the kingdom. We're all fucked if we don't. And that's why I'm pushing back so hard, because if we make the... And there's nothing wrong with doing things because you want somebody to like you. It's if you're only doing something to ingratiate yourself, and you're going to be pissed off if the person, doesn't fall to their knees and suck your dick. That's a problem. And that happens way too often. And that was very male language. Women do it too. Women run hot and cold in relationships. They go, well, I'm going to be so helpful, and I'm going to bring them food, and I'm going to call all the time and everything like that. And then it's not reciprocated. Why isn't it reciprocated? Well, you didn't ask for it to be reciprocated. And that's too much effort to expect someone to reciprocate. You are people pleasing, not doing something just because it's a nice thing. The act of doing should have inherent value, or you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you like somebody and you're doing something to be nice, and hope maybe they'll like you back, but don't expect it, it's not conditional for it to be worth doing, that's awesome. If you're doing it to get them into bed, it's a manipulation. And this is why it's important we talk about this stuff. And people are going to be pissed at me. I don't care. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. One-time Leanna Care session for somebody who can use but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Or the men's group, GoFundMe. We're in the process of building it now. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.